Let me know when to begin.
Okay, we have 7 participants. You may begin.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I am just delighted to be here. I am Rahul Amin Quander, president of the Quander Historical and Educational Society, founded in 1985 to preserve, first to identify, then preserve, document, and share the stellar history of the Quander family. For those of you who may or may not know, the Quander family is one of the oldest, we don't claim to be the oldest, one of the oldest consistently documented African-American families. Noted in the records from the 1670s in Charles County, Port Tobacco, Maryland, and documented from 1684, beginning with the last will and testament whereby the enslaver Henry Adams provided for the freedom of 2 of his enslaved, Henry Quander and his future wife, Margaret Pug. Through the centuries, now decades, now millennium, we have been safeguarding, or first of all finding and then trying to safeguard and protect our history. And it's not because it's just our history, it's a deep, deep American history story. As I tell people many times, it's not about Black or African-American history. It is an American history story told from an African-American perspective. People have been asking for a long time about the history of the Quander family, a little bit here, a little bit there. Even some of the family members didn't seem to know as much about it as other family members. And over time, graduating and studying at Howard University, undergrad, and then School of Law, I met a number of students from various places in West Africa who kept telling me more about my family's name, Quander and Quando, than even I knew. And subsequent investigations revealed that there's a strong connection, most likely to Ghana, West Africa. It's a Fanti name, QU in English, AMKW in the Akan languages of West Africa, that has led to a journey from the 60s all the way up until now. And in 2021, I published a book, which you're going to see a cover of in a few minutes, The Quanders Since 1684. An enduring African-American legacy. It is a story of triumph over trial and tribulation. It is a story of stepping stones, perhaps even building as far as pyramids, that the stumbling blocks did indeed not get in the way. It is a story of focus, determination, setbacks, failure, but it's saying that I or we will not be denied. Let's say it begins with the last will and testament in 1684, where the enslaver, Henry Adams, a colonial legislator from England who came to the colonies in 1639, in 1684, he wrote his will, and he provided for 2 of the 4 of his enslaved, Henry Quando, his namesake apparently, and Margaret, not Margaret, but Margaret Pug, later his wife, to be freed. And here they were when he died in 1686. They got their freedom. Free, yes. Turned loose, yes. But what? They undoubtedly could not read, could not write, didn't have any money, didn't have any assets. And he left them, when he freed them, he left a cow. He left them some farm tools, and he said a trunk and whatever is in it. We have no idea what is in it because it didn't specifically say. But cast out at that point, the young Henry and the young Margaret set about to make a life for themselves in Charles County, Port Tobacco, Maryland. And through the years, they had ups, they had downs, they had ins, they had outs, and the written record of their attempts in the court system, many of which resulted in failure, were really a roadmap for us today, because it showed determination, it showed focus, it showed a desire to get ahead. And even where they did not succeed, although they did succeed at times, it showed their determination that they were not determined that they should not pay taxes based on the fact that Margaret was a free woman. And the argument was that that tax was supposed to be on slave women. Well, they had to pay it, they still paid it, but it left a record for us to find. So the record that follows in many cases all the way up to the present time leaves a trail of success, a trail of determination, a trail of setback, but a determination to find another way. When the door was closed, they found a window. So all the way from the 1600s all the way up to the present time, the family has been very successful at 2 steps forward, sometimes 1 step back, 2 steps forward, sometimes 3 steps back. But they never lost their focus, never lost their determination. And we, their current generation, have been so inspired and determined to follow through and to continue, and still we rise. A little highlight here, George Washington, who was the founder of our country, he had ancestors who were enslaved, Quander ancestors who were enslaved in Mount Vernon. And his nephew, Bushrod Washington, is allegedly, I said it that way, notice, the father of West Ford, who himself is the defined father of that line of the Quander family. In fact, Nellie Quander, who was the first supreme bacillus of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, who joined in 1910, 2 years after the sorority was founded, and remained the national president from 1911 to 1919. She's a direct descendant of West Ford. And through the years, Quanders have been educators. We've gone from working laborers in the field and doing manual labor to cooks and butlers, and then hack drivers, which is carriages, and beauticians. And then we have a long list of history of formal educators. And from that, we have built upon that doctors, we've built upon that lawyers, we've built upon that teachers. We've now built into politics and community service and engineers. And all of this has been based upon the determination, strength, and continuation of the family with a focus. And over time, we've also been blessed to have distinguished military service. John Pearson Quander, who's Nellie Quander's father, was a distinguished Civil War veteran. And when the Grand Army of the Republic came here in 1915 for the 50th anniversary of the war, he was selected to deliver a keynote address at the reunion representing the colored troops. And that was in 1915. The family, Nellie Quander and her sister Susie, they worked very closely with Carter G. Woodson, who was the founder, of course, of ASALH. And Susie Quander was the secretary of ASALH for 12 years, from 1926 to 1938. And Nellie Quander was part of a literary society that Dr. Woodson founded to work closely with him. And so we have a long history of that type of intellectual association as well. When I mention military service, I should mention that through the years, the family has served with great distinction in the World War I effort. In fact, the slide you see up in the right corner, that's Peter Mercer Quander, who was a World War I veteran.
So Quander, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was on mute. So have we lost everything to this point?
Nope.
No, just a couple seconds.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So Richard Ignatius Quander with the hat on the lower left, he was World War I and Spanish American War. And today the family is very, very blessed to have actually 4 United States generals. We're the only African American family, maybe even the only family that has had 4 generals. Currently, Mark Quander is the commandant of West Point. That's the #2 position in charge of all of the cadets from the administrative point at West Point. And the other 2 generals were Vincent Keith Brooks, who was first captain, which is the when he was a student at West Point. And that is the highest ranking student in charge of all of the cadets. And his brother, Leo Brooks Jr., was the 2nd African-American commandant, and Mark Quander the 3rd. And he was 2002, 2004. The family has a very distinguished history as well with churches and community organizations. All of this has culminated in people asking me to put this in writing, and I have indeed done so. Next slide, please. In February of this year, I published this book, which you're looking at, Quander Quality, the true story of 6 Quanders since 1684, an enduring African-American legacy. The Quanders since 1684, an enduring African-American legacy. Much of what I'm telling you in my time is to capture that story. to let people know about it. It's, as I say, it's not an African-American story. It is American history from an African-American perspective. And Dr. Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham, who is the president, as you well know, of ASALH, she said to me, she and I went to Howard together. She said to me when she knew the book was coming, she would sincerely hope that it would be available by February 1st, Black History Month, 2021. And we strove and worked very hard. And it was indeed published on February 1st, 2021. And she had a copy of the manuscript and was so pleased. And she said she'd like to do something. So I said, I tell you what, I'd love for you to write a little statement. So she wrote a praise statement. And the very first page of the book is a praise statement from Dr. Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham. And she was quite taken back with the book itself. You can't see it from here, but that's it, her praise statement. And of course, you can obtain the book through me. You can look at the webpage, www.quanderquality.com. Use the www. Because if you just go to Quander Quality, there's a whole lot of information on the Quander family, but the www will take you right to the webpage. And you can obtain this book, The Quanders since 1684, An Enduring African-American Legacy. The price from Barnes & Noble or Amazon or from the Quander Historical and Educational Society is the same. But if you get it from me, it will be personally autographed. It will have the Quander family stamp, and it will also have an African-American history stamp. So you get all of that for the same price, and there's no extra charge for shipping and handling. So you see it right there. You can also find it info@quanderquality.com. You can reach me. So I know time is short, and I've gone rather quickly because I wanted you to have a sense of the fact that African-American history and culture is indeed the cornerstone of American history. And the Quander story, while not unique, is a very important part of it. We've been blessed to have been in the Smithsonian 3 times. Not there now, give somebody else a chance, that's fine. We've been in there 3 times. And the first exhibit was there for 17 years. Can you imagine that? From 1985 to 2002. After the Revolution, Everyday Life in America, 1780 to 1800. Now, the time is short. Perhaps there might be a couple of questions. If not, I continue on. Are there any questions? Nobody has raised any questions. Okay. Well, I think you should know that we have been very strong in faith communities. The Maryland Quanders have a long and strong history in Roman Catholicism, which is unusual for African Americans. St. Augustine Catholic Church in Washington, D.C. and others. The Quanders on the other side of the river, our cousins, have a long history in the Baptist Church, particularly Alfred Street Baptist Church, where members have been allegedly part of the congregation in some form or fashion since the year 1813. We have put so much emphasis upon strong faith and values, and Christian values. Everybody's not necessarily Christian. We have Muslims, we have Jews in the family, but the emphasis has been upon values and strength and focus. And that indeed has been a contributing factor of how we have gotten this far, how we have survived. And we like to believe that we put our emphasis on uplift, on being role models, on setting a good example. Of course, we've had a few stumbles along the way, who hasn't? But we like to put the emphasis upon being good, responsible citizens, where we can be role models to help others as we go along the way. If I can help somebody along the way, then my living will not be in vain. We've heard that before. So this is really the legacy of who the Quander family members are. And as we look forward, we've had our 96th annual Quander family reunion this year to 2021, and also 2020 had to be virtual. We were hoping to do the 96 face-to-face, but it wasn't possible. But we are moving on towards the 100th Quander family reunion in 2026. And we're looking forward to that. We're already working to it. So I encourage everybody, you need to know something about your family. You may not have as much information as we have. You may have more, but unless you put it into some type of structure and organization, doesn't have to be a book like this, but it needs to be put in writing. because as you go orally from generation to generation, you might lose something, but when you put it in writing, you might not get every single thing, but you will have a strong legacy to pass on to your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come. Our archives are stored at Howard University in the Moreland Spingarn Research Center. So if you go there, or some of the other places will point you to go there. And we have a strong lot of Alpha Kappa Alpha materials from Nellie Quander, and they are also stored at the same place, and the AKA archives are stored at Howard University. So it's my pleasure to have been your guest this evening. I think my time is up, and I want to pass it on to the next person. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really been a great pleasure. I hope I didn't talk too fast, but I am very delighted that I was included in this event. Thank you.
Judge Quander will leave it open for a few more minutes in case someone has a question.
Thank you. Quietude has its virtue also.
I would just like to say to you how grateful we are for you persevering to get this done, because your story, we've been watching you along the way, and you have done an exceptional job. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. And I always like to tell other people. I was in Connecticut last weekend for a book fest. I spent a lot of time with the younger people, having them and encouraging them to talk to the older members of the family and record, not just write down, but go meet with them with a tape recorder or some device, so that when they sit down later in later years, they can look back and say, Aunt so-and-so or grandma or grandpa or somebody told me something. And this is what happened with us. Maryland Hall of Records in Annapolis and the Virginia, Fairfax County archives in the courtroom and District of Columbia, we were able to document and pull things together, which began to weave into what you now see today. And that picture you see, the book cover there, that's Charles Henry Quander on Quander Road in Fairfax County. There are now 4 Quander streets. The original one was in Washington, D.C., disappeared during World War II when they expanded the Navy Yard. The City Council restored it in 2015 on the maps. And in May of this year, the street was cut through, but the street sign went up. You come out of the baseball stadium going towards the metro. If you're taking the metro station on the right, you'll walk right past Quander Street, where it was from named in the 1890s, probably then the 1880s. But Quander Street is there, restored again. So that is a culmination, typical example of perseverance and focus and determination to the point where we have 4 Quander Streets, one in DC, one in Fairfax County, one in Prince William County, and one in Bowie, which is, that's Fairfax County. No, I'm sorry. That's Prince George's, the one in Prince William, the one in Fairfax County, and the one in DC. Yeah. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'm delighted and available.
I don't have a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
This is Gladys Mack. I just wanted to say hello to you.
Hello again, Gladys.
Hi. I'm now on the ASALH board. And of course, I've known about your work for a long time, since we worked together those many years ago.
That's right.
So it's good to see you.
It's glad to be able to be seen. And I know you are on the ASALH board, and I thank you for that effort.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. I too am a member. And as I said, our family, Nellie Quander, Susie Quander, and others have been affiliated with ASALH from the very early stages when Dr. Woodson was founding it and getting it together. And they were very much part of the support mechanism that he enjoyed that was so necessary. And of course, as a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, I've always held him in very high esteem. And on December the 19th, we generally observe his birthday. And maybe this year we'll be able to do it face to face. I don't know, but hopefully. But if so, I would like to be present at that event.
Great.
And I should say the book comes in hardcover and softcover. As I did say, I didn't talk price, but you can look it up. But you'll get it from me or Amazon or Barnes and Noble. It's the same price, but you don't get it autographed. You don't get the stamp, which of course gives it some extra character.
Okay, Judge Quander, that's our time. Thank you so much for joining us, ASALH. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you so much, and thank you for helping me to navigate the technical side of getting in.